I ended last week's show saying, could QPR stay in the top half of the table and stay in the cup? Of course, it was too much for QPR because although we stayed in the top half, we were knocked out of the cup by Crystal Palace. I'm going to say Sheffield United then for some reason. Third round hurdle, as usual, too much for us. But of course, we did have a good moment this week with the Alfie Lloyd equaliser, which is probably already an infamous moment with that goalmouth scramble. We'll be previewing the London derby against Millwall shortly. But first, let's look back at the week's games. If we start with that cup defeat, going down 2-1, did we deserve to get knocked out, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Palace were probably the better side overall, especially first half. I thought first half we showed them a bit too much respect. We just stood off them and let them play. And they've got better players than us, and they ran riot at times, you know. But again, as we do quite often, as we stayed in the game, we didn't concede that second goal, and we were a lot better second half. And you know, we got level and we had chances at the end to take it to penalties. And it's probably, you know, the Edge didn't deserve to win the game, I think, overall. But I thought we'd done all right. You know, it was quite a close game. At 1-0, I feared the worst. This could be a bit of a hiding, but you know, it was a close game, and they did okay.
Yeah, I expected us to lose, but it's a good sign that I think most QPR fans have come away feeling disappointed to lose to two easily preventable goals. It was for my money. It's actually quite a cagey game, wasn't it? A lot of it was like just controlled possession in midfield from both sides, especially in the first half. Neither goalkeeper had a lot to do. The XG was very low for both sides, probably the lowest I've seen since I've ever recorded it for these shows. I think QPR fans, like I say, most of us agree we gave a good account of ourselves. But the QPR lineup did split opinion on whether it was right or wrong to take the cup seriously. We made 7 changes. Palace were almost full strength. Could Marty Cifuentes face some stick if we now don't turn up against Millwall?
Possibly. I think it has split opinion that the lineup. For me, I didn't think it was that weak a lineup. It wasn't like in previously, as when, remember a few years ago when Steve McLaren was manager and we had Blackpool away and he just threw all the kids in and they got beaten. It's like, what you done that for? That was a winnable game. They still had quite a lot of the senior players playing. You know, Cook played. Oh, Sanfield had a good game last night. You know, they had several of the first team in there, and they've spent a lot of money on the likes of Varane and Madsen. They've got, you know, they're not B team players. They are first team players. But the thing I've got difficult with at the minute is what is our best team, because on paper, I suppose we had a stronger team out against Sheffield Wednesday. I thought we actually played better against Palace, to be honest. So it's quite difficult. I think we're still trying to find what our best team is. I would have liked to have seen Colback and Frey involved last night, just for a bit more hustle in the team and try and close them down a little bit. But I mean, overall, I think it was a decent side, and we made a good account of ourselves. I think whatever 11 we put out, I looked at their bench last night and their first 11 Palace, and I just don't see a player we've got that would get in that team. And it probably says a lot about the gap between where we are and where they are at the moment. So I think whatever 11 we put out, 9 times out of 10 they would have won the game, Palace.
Yeah, you made a few good points there. And I actually truly believe that Marty Cifuentes doesn't see it as weakening his team. He
No.
probably sees it as giving equal players, it's their turn in the side. And I don't think there was an inclination that he didn't want to win the game either. For him, he probably felt that was a QPR side that could go out and win the game. And we did play better than some other performances. Like you said, I mean, when you think back to Cambridge in the second half, especially, Cambridge battered us. We were terrible, but we won that game. Palace, we were just unlucky. It has to be said, like I say, we didn't look like a weakened team. There wasn't that much between the sides. The difference was, of course, it was inevitable, wasn't it? Abere Eze, it's like he's playing a different game, isn't it?
He was unbelievable. He just ran the game. I mean, it would have been nice if we tackled him once, once or twice during the game, but they just couldn't get near him. And, you know, he's quick thinking for the first goal with a free kick and the run and shot for the second. You know, he was levels above everything else on the pitch. You know, I think he's going to go on and go even higher. I mean, the Palace fans were giving us stick about why he left us. I think he'll be leaving them pretty soon as well. He's a fantastic player. It was good to see him again, but, you know, it's a shame we couldn't beat him.
Yeah, I think we were a bit too nice to him. Maybe if Jack Colback had been in the team, but I think we needed
Yeah.
someone to lay one on him, and we were being a bit too pleasant because he just plays at his own pace, doesn't he? Slows it down, he speeds
Yeah.
it back up. He makes it look like there's nobody can do anything to stop him. He just drift in between
Mm.
positions. But like you say, there's no way he stays at Palace if he keeps playing like that. Before we move on, I know it was covered in the last show, but I'm keen to get your thoughts on the match against Sheffield Wednesday because I know you were there. We've not seen many ends to a game like that. How was the Alfie Lloyd equaliser for you?
Oh, it was incredible. it was such a dire game, to be honest, for most of it. And we were sat there like, oh, well, we'll take the 0-0. And then when Bannon scored, it was such, we just felt gutted with it. Yeah, we'd lost the game. But the character they showed to come back and, you know, to push forward, the goal is ridiculous. I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen the goal a million times. To have that many players in the box and everyone swinging at it. I mean, I thought the goalkeeper had scored the way he ran off, and we were all going berserk. It was only when Alfie Lloyd come over at the end and was celebrating. It's like, oh, I think he must have scored the way he's celebrating. But it was just a great moment. One that you remember. I mean, wasn't the best performance overall from us. I didn't think we played particularly well. The balance of the team just didn't look right at all. But it was a great moment. I was so pleased for Lloyd at the end. He just seemed so excited to get that goal, didn't he?
Yeah, and Paul Nardi, you're right. He was giving it the full aeroplane on wings and everything flying off, wasn't he? But it was a totally forgettable game with an unforgettable end. And it reminded me of the Seny Dieng equaliser at Sunderland, where QPR just don't turn up at all in the game, but we end up with like a classic moment we'll all look back on. And it could be a cheeky outside bet for goal of the season, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think they'll be getting a few votes. It seems to be a popular one. I mean, we were getting the tram back to Sheffield afterwards, and it was full of Sheffield Wednesday fans watching the goal, and each of them finding a different foul that we'd made. Look at that! There's a handball. There's a foul there, and it's like, well, never mind. It was a nice one to score.
Yeah, what's absolutely hilarious as well is that Koki Saito has been given an official assist for that, which I don't know how someone's picked that up. And if it was probably with his hand, which is even more funny. And it's worth pointing out as well that both QPR goals this week came from corners. So that as we've had a few actually, haven't we, already this season from corners? So that's definitely a positive, and long may that continue. If we turn our attention to the midweek, I'm saying loads of things wrong tonight. The weekend clash against Millwall. I usually give some stats on the head-to-head, but there's not much we can make out of it this week because last season, both matches were won 2-0 by the home team, but the season before, both matches were won by the away side. So no pattern whatsoever. Millwall sit 18th in the early running. They won one game 3-0 against Sheffield Wednesday. All their other matches have been close affairs, settled by the odd goal. Their defeats against Bristol City and Watford were both caused by last-minute goals they conceded. So they don't look like the 18th position. You can't read too much into it, is one thing I would say. I suppose the main question with Millwall is Neil Harris. Was he the correct long-term appointment there?
Probably not long-term, but, he gave him a galvanising effect last season and kept them up. They looked like they were in banging trouble when he came in. And he did a really good job to just try and bring everyone together and get them out of it. I'm not sure it will work long-term, and this season could be a bit of a struggle for them. Like you say, they are in all their games and they don't, get hammered too often. They're quite a hard side to beat, and their league position is a little bit false at the minute. I think they can probably go above us if they beat us at the weekend. So they're a difficult side, but yeah, for me, he's not a great manager, Neil Harris. I don't think he'll be there long term.
Yeah, there's no doubt he suits that club and he's a legend there, but it's one of those cases where you wonder if they should have parted ways at the end of last season. He saved them, his reputation's intact, and just move on, because I'm not convinced he can take them much further, like when he was there the first time. And he's bound to come under pressure because Gary Rowett was sacked last season when they were 15th and he'd had them punching above the weight for years. So I'm not sure what any manager really can do there. So whether he's just going to harm his reputation by staying, we'll soon find out, I guess. On the pitch, Millwall ranked 23rd for possession, the bottom of the table for pass accuracy. We know what we're going to get from this Millwall side, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, that's how his sides play. They're direct, they're in your face, they make it hard for you, and they will make it hard for us, You've seen the last few games that we're trying to play out from the back a lot, and they're going to be all over that. They're going to be pressing us hard up the pitch and trying to force errors, and that's probably what they'll see as their best chance. And it'll be a difficult game. These games against Millwall always are. They're always quite close. Even though we beat them at home last season, it was quite a close game and they had chances in it as well. So it's a shame it's an early kickoff because I think that will affect the atmosphere. It's been a bit dead, the 12:31 so far this season, but hopefully we can have a good performance in this one.
Yeah, I think the 12:30 could be a factor. Maybe it being a London derby will help it somewhat this time compared to the other matches. But we need to be at it from the start. QPR haven't turned up until the second half a few times now. Can't do that against Millwall in a London derby. On paper, it should be an attacking game. QPR ranks second for shots per game. Millwall are fifth. They're also second for XG, so perhaps not getting the goals that they should so far, which is something to watch out for as well. But having said that, I've probably just set it up to be a 0-0 saying those stats. From a QPR perspective, the hot topic everywhere after the Crystal Palace game has been the performance of Zan Celar. I know we all know Michael Frey will probably start against Millwall. Well, what did you make of Celar's performance?
I think it's a really difficult game to judge him on because the way the team set up in that Palace game, we were very defensive. We struggled to get around half in the first half, to be honest. We were just trying to contain them and then hit them on the break. It didn't really suit him. And when we did get the ball up to him, he's up against probably the best English centre half at the moment in Gay, and they've got other good centre halves as well. It wasn't an easy game to judge him on. I see he's getting a lot of stick, but for me, he's only made 3 starts. It's only September. You need to give him at least until Christmas to judge him. I mean, I'll be honest, it doesn't look promising so far. I don't think he's looked very good in what I've seen of him so far. But, I think he just needs a bit of time to settle and then see how he goes.
Yeah, I think it is. I agree with you totally. It's the wrong match to jump to massive conclusions on. He was feeding on scraps at best. He was up against international centre-backs. Often they had no QPR player within 20 yards of him, especially in the first half. And if you compare him with Mateta for Crystal Palace, Mateta only had 14 touches too. The game was primarily a midfield battle. It was hard for any striker out there. I put on our forum that I genuinely think if you could put any striker in the QPR side last night, I don't know how they do much better or do anything that much different to what he did. Sticking my neck on the line, I still think he's going to come good. We just maybe need to adjust how we play a bit to suit him. And I don't think it helps altering him and Frey because they're two very different strikers and then you have to adjust again completely. He's certainly not a striker we can just keep knocking long balls to. And we have to say this week that Michael Frey wasn't great against Sheffield Wednesday either. There's actually a bit of evidence that over the last 12 months or so, we're not an easy side to be the striker in. I'm sure Celar will be splitting opinion in the comments this week, though. So if we move on from that, before we cause too much controversy, Jake Clark-Salter was an unexpected and big loss this week. Do you think Cifuentes trying Sam Field at the back suggests Clark-Salter could be out for some time, and that's why he wanted to try Sam Field in there?
I mean, potentially. I mean, I do think him having a left-footed centre half for that game did help us. I thought Dunn did all right against Sheffield Wednesday, but there wasn't that balance that when we were bringing the ball out. So I think Phil did bring that to us, and basically he's down to 2 centre halves, so he probably wants to just trying to rotate him and make sure he doesn't lose any more. But I thought Phil did a really good job in that position. Maybe not to play there long term, but I think he's someone you can be used there while Clark-Salter's out.
Yeah, he looked comfortable. I don't think anyone from Crystal Palace, let's say, would think he's never played there very often before because he did look pretty good. And we never get to hear much about the injuries, do we? It's like a closed door at the moment completely. Yeah. But I did get the vibe from Marty Cifuentes' media questions last week that Clark-Salter's out for the foreseeable future, but that's just my hunch on it. What did you make of Harris and Aspie's debut?
I thought he did okay. He seemed to do he'd break and beat a man and then stop and didn't know what to do with it. I think part of that was how he was set up. There was no really options to pass forward. I think when you're playing in the Championship, he will look a lot better. I thought he did reasonably well. Cifuentes seems to have changed it a bit with the fullbacks. I noticed the last 2 games, Powell's been basically in midfield when we've got the ball, and they're playing more as like a back 3. When we've got the ball. So I wonder if that's going to continue because he does seem to be pushing Powell in midfield and Ashby seemed to do that as well second half. So I think that's kind of the way they're going with it. I thought he did okay.
Yeah, and that can't be easy for them to adjust to from one match to the next. So if you're changing something, it'll take a little bit of time. For me, he showed a good turn of pace down the flank. He got from A to B very quick, but then, like you say, when he got to B, he didn't really know what to do next. Yeah. His pass accuracy was the lowest on the pitch. The stats show he gave it away every other time he had the ball, but he was up against a good team. I thought he did okay. There was some promise there. If Dunn has to play centre half again, would you choose Santos or Ashby at right back against Millwall?
I'd probably give Ashby a go. I thought Santos did all right against Sheffield Wednesday, but I think he just looked like he had a little bit more about him, Ashby. So I'd probably go with him. And they've just signed him on loan, so you'd assume he's coming in to play in the first team. So yeah, I think he probably will start at the weekend.
Yeah, I think the only problem is it's not helping the team maybe to keep chopping and changing players around, but I think you said it before, Marty Cifuentes, it's clear he doesn't know his best team at the moment, so he's going to keep having to do it for a few games more. Jack Colback was rested in midweek. I think we all assume he will start against Millwall. But Varane, he gave a very good performance. Can you pick a midfield for this match?
I think if he goes with Dunn centre half, it'll be Field and Colback again. I think that's probably the first choice at the minute. But I thought Varane actually did okay in that Palace game. It's quite a difficult one for him, but he does seem to be getting better the more he's playing. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's involved off the bench again. But I think he'll start with Field and Colback for this one because it's likely to be a battle in midfield.
Yeah, I thought Varane did very well, especially when he was booked in the first half. So he had to be very disciplined in the second half. I think it helped in that he'd been given a specific job, not overcomplicating things, just getting stuck in. And it seemed to really suit him. I think he's not the player we actually thought he was when he first joined, though. He's more of a combative, defensive-minded battler, isn't he? Rather than someone who's going to be progressive through the lines. But it was good to see him have a much improved display. I think it's not out of the question that we could see Sam Field at centre-half again, because obviously Millwall very direct. Then we get Jimmy Dunn at right back as well, so there's a lot of height at the back. So then we could have Colback plus Varane or Madsen in midfield. I think it's safe to say we won't have Madsen, though, on the left wing again, will we? That did not work last weekend.
No, and I think he's really scrambling to try and find the best balance to how we play going forward. Chair being out is a massive issue for us. We just haven't got anyone who can play on the left at the minute, really. They're trying all sorts of different things, but it's not really worked so far. Madsen definitely didn't work. He's a lot better through the middle. I can't see him trying that again. Saito maybe could start this one. I thought we did okay against Palace, but just to have someone with a left foot on that side, I suppose that's what he might go with. But again, Millwall are a really physical side. Will he go with someone who could probably get bullied quite easily by him?
Yeah, I think Madsen will start because of the height that he brings, although he's not particularly good in the air, I've noticed so far. Like you say, the options it's good to have, but Ilias Chair, he would just walk straight back into this side as good as options have been. Final third, just not quite clicking. Personally, I'd maybe go with Saito on the left, then Bailey and Smith, but like I say, I think Madsen will be in there, so more than likely could be Madsen, then Bailey on the right, and then maybe Alfie Lloyd on the left. It's anyone's guess, really. Like I say, plenty of options, but hard to pick. Prediction time to finish. You were right last week going for a draw, but do you think we'll get our first home win against Millwall?
I do think we will. I think it's going to be a tight game. I don't think this will be easy at all. I think there won't be a lot in it, but I do think we'll sneak a win of maybe 2-1. I think we'll do it this week.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but there's something about this match, Millwall being hard to beat so far and our form not being consistent. It just screams draw to me. Obviously, we're hard to beat, but Millwall are too. We've discussed it many times already now. Marty does not know his best team, and we wouldn't even know. I don't think anyone could predict the team he's going to play on Saturday. Yeah. And does that help us or not? Probably not. I have, of course, hope we can nail a performance, but I'd go for a 1-1. But it was our win against Millwall back in January that actually kick-started our resurgence last season. So hopefully we can get a similar win at the weekend. Let us know your thoughts and predictions in the comments. And it's another 12:30 match, God forbid. Next week we'll be previewing when we make the trip north to face high-flying Blackburn Rovers. Thank you for watching, and come on yours.
We know who we are. You know who we are. We are QPR.